Hey, homebuyers, are you guilty of doom scrolling? Are you letting those media headlines getting to your brain? Well, put that phone down, stop scrolling, and listen to what we have to say because your doom scrolling could be costing you a lot of money.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. We are the Hatch Homes Group, and it is our Monday housing market update. Before we get into all the juicy content we are going to be talking about today, please remember to like and subscribe if you are enjoying what you're seeing. So, we all love to break down the doom and gloom headlines. We're really excited today because we have a compilation of almost a decade worth of doom and gloom headlines. We want to talk about what it would have meant for you if you would have listened to those headlines throughout the years. Additionally, we are going to go over a shocking statistic about consumer confidence right now and trying to figure out where that's coming from and really break it down for you all. And we just want to thank Neo Home Loans, our lender partner, for providing a lot of this information. Thank you, Jason. We really appreciate this content because it is true gold. Now let's look at the first slide. So, wow.
Man, this slide blew my mind because I always think that the headlines now are negative, but this shows that back in October 2015, 7 years after the Great Recession, people were kind of doom and glooming about a housing bubble, right? And so this slide shows every single year since 2015 that there were headlines proclaiming that homeownership was not a good idea for whatever reason, which is really cool because we see a lot of those headlines today, and it kind of does give us all pause when we see those headlines, which is why we break down so many of these articles to really thoroughly investigate what the claims are and whether or not they're true. And this just makes me feel so much better about what we've been doing, because what this shows is if you didn't listen to the media and in October of 2015 you bought a home for $315,000, your home would be worth over $500,000 today. You would have appreciated over $200,000. You would have gained over $200,000 financially. And the opposite of that, again, is like, if you don't get your foot in the door because of something as trivial as a headline that's making you feel fear, you could be losing out on building your wealth to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, not to mention that the rents went up considerably during that time.
Oh my goodness. That is such a good point, John.
Unfortunately, I've helped a lot of buyers that had parents that were like, don't buy, it's a bad time. And it was bad advice. And it's because, people aren't really necessarily getting the information from the right places. So I felt the same way when I looked at these slides of what we're doing.
Can you imagine that in 2017, you read a headline that said home ownership doesn't build wealth, study finds, and then you missed out on 16% appreciation in 2019 and 18% appreciation in 2021?
Well, and who's trying to tell buyers that? Like, real estate is the number one way that the average American builds wealth in their lifetime.
Preach.
And it is absolutely like appalling for people to try to talk a buyer out of getting into that. I'm not going to get on my soapbox, but it makes me angry.
It makes me angry too, yeah.
So let's look at consumer confidence.
I just find this so interesting, don't you?
Consumer confidence right now lower than when the pandemic hit and we were in lockdown. How is this possible?
What do you think this is about?
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about this, like of almost, and I was trying to figure out a better word for it, but I really think there's like PTSD of the last few shifts that we've been through, right? So we had the Great Bubble Recession, which was awful for so many people, and we don't downplay that, right? That was a really, really horrible time for the United States.
Absolutely.
And so that was huge, right? And then we had the pandemic, which was also, we don't need to even talk about it. It was awful. Yes. So I think that because we've had this like other shift in the market, and we have, right, talk about a recession, everything. I think that people just are really fully reacting to that PTSD of the last two shifts.
Yeah, and I think PTSD is actually a very accurate descriptor because it's an emotional resonance of something that happened already. You know what I mean? Like, it is not necessarily a rational reaction, but that knee-jerk reaction is a protection mechanism based on what we've experienced before, which is completely understandable. Given that pandemic, given the inflation that we've been experiencing, and all of these fears around a recession, which, we wouldn't even know if we're in a recession until later, right? Because economists define those in retrospect. So it is really interesting to see this sort of new low, and it makes me as an agent even more motivated to understand the emotions behind where my buyers are coming from, and then give them the facts that they need to sort of make good decisions, even if their emotions are kind of like in conflict with taking action.
Right. And we talked too about like, on that note, like that culture of scrollers, and like how a lot of these headlines really don't relate to the data that's in the article, right?
Okay, talking about soapboxes, let me get on mine now. I mean, how many times have we broken down an article that proclaims something horrific, and then their own facts and data within the article that support their supposed claims actually end up saying something different? I mean, we are such a consumer culture at this point, and everything that we take is just in snippets here and there and between something else. And what we don't realize is that unless we thoroughly investigate topics with critical thinking and with someone who works in the field and can give us context for everything, we're essentially brainwashing ourselves into what the media wants us to think. And I don't know why we are so adamant about not doing that with certain topics, but then we allow housing and fear of buying a house to be one of those topics that we're like, oh yeah, a housing bubble, doom and gloom,
Yeah.
Don't get it.
I mean, I think that in terms of people talking about this doom and gloom and, oh, are we in a bubble again? I think it's really eye-opening to look at actual inventory statistics from 2007. So let's take a look at this one.
Let's look at this slide. Is this 2007 all over again when the bubble burst? So we saw there the inventory was 3.81 million properties. And currently we're at 1.28, just to reach the average for the past 20 years, we would have to double our inventory. So we want more inventory. And we're not in a bad position at all. Let's look at some positive things. Friday, we came up with the December numbers on inflation. It slowed to 6.5%, which is 8 months in a row that the inflation has ticked down. So we're on the right track. And I believe we've actually seen interest rates come down for the past 3 days. And since October last year, we've seen a general trend down. And not to say that we won't see some adjustments, but we're looking at a very positive direction right now.
Yeah. And I mean, all the indicators in the market right now are not indicating that we're going to go up to 3.8 million in inventory. Like,
absolutely not.
Where would that come from? We sure will see some more distressed sales. That's going to happen. But if you think the market's going to flood with foreclosures like it did then, how?
It's not possible.
Tell me how.
Plus, we have so many millennials who are aging into home buying, who have a lot of home buying power, that there really is much more demand than there is supply.
Yeah. So let us know if you want us to break this down. And we do a free consultation for buyers. Like, we don't bite. We want to help you get to that position where you can build your wealth. And we're very passionate about it, clearly.
We are very passionate about it. We really want to be your advisor in this situation, and the market is a living, breathing thing that changes all the time. We're immersed in it on a daily basis, so we keep abreast of the trends and can really contextualize headlines for you. And if you want to know how billionaire investors are responding to the current supposed housing crisis, stay tuned for next week.
Next week.
Have a good week, everyone.
Yep. See ya.